We're here this morning to discuss finishing up the roof on my 1939 Ford Woody station wagon project. And the roof is constructed of wood slats that are about 2 inches wide that go from the front all the way to the back. And then there's a vinyl piece of black material that goes over the top, and that has a white fabric underneath part. So when you're in the car and you're looking up, you see white between the wood slats. One of my friends, Ken Burns, who's in the car club, gave me this piece, which is an original piece off of one of his cars. And this piece goes across the very front, and as the wood slats come forward, they sit under here, and there's screws between each one as it goes along. I don't want to bend it, I don't want to break it. So that's kind of interesting because I've never seen one of those, and this is my second Woody restoration project. He also gave me, so I could show you, an original rain gutter or drip rail which runs from the front of the car all the way to the back. And here is a new piece that you can see has already got the final paint on it, which is Jefferson blue, and you can see it's like that. And it sits like this on the car, and the theory is as the water comes off the roof, it gets caught in this drip rail portion here and doesn't fall on the people, but I don't think it's very effective. Anyway, that's what they did. Also, from Ken, the inside part of this, which covers the screws, it's a decorative piece, rubber piece, and here's an original one that he just gave me. And this is really interesting because it appears to be made up of a rubber insert like that, which is then covered by some kind of a combination of fabric and rubber. You can see the little fibers there, and maybe even better over here, that come out of this original piece. This is quite unusual to see one of these. So those are the original pieces. Now, the issue about putting these rubber decorative pieces in here is complicated by the fact that it's very difficult anymore to find the proper rubber to go into these pieces. I was fortunate enough many years ago, while this project was still young, to get some of this rubber from one of the suppliers up in New England, and the problem was I only had enough to do the side rails and not the cross piece. And so one of my friends in the car club, also Cliff Green, gave me what he thought might work, which is a piece of rubber like this. And this is what we hoped might work, and this is a piece of what the rubber actually looks like for the 39. This is from a 40 or higher car. I tried to see if I could make this fit. It's too wide to compress, and so just for fun I cut a deeper groove in one of these pieces, and I was able to compress it some, but once it actually got into the rail on the cross piece in the car, it stood too proud, it stood up too high, and it would have been very difficult to cut this groove all the way across 4 or 5 feet of this. So it turns out that my friend Ken Burns had an extra roll of this, which he was kind enough to give me to go across the front, and we'll talk about that in a minute when we look at the car. Now also at the back of the car, there's a trim piece. This is an original that Ken gave me, and it looks like it might have been painted at some point in time, but it's a chrome piece. And on the Deluxe car versus a standard car, the Deluxe was more deluxe, I guess, fancier car, they had these trim pieces, and it slides on like that on the back of the car to trim up the raw edge of that drip rail as it goes back, and we'll show you one of those mounted on the car in a minute. Also, the very back part of the car The rear part of the car has what's called whelping. We'll show you that also. And the idea with this whelping is you can spread it apart like that, and then you can tack it onto the wood crossbeam at the rear of the car, and once you have it all tacked in there, these pieces naturally fold back together and hide those tacks, so you've got a nice clean look of whelping across the car. Now this piece happens to be brown because it's from my 1939 Ford Standard, which was the first restoration project that I did. On the Deluxe it's black, but I didn't have any left to show you except what's already mounted on the car. So what we're going to look at in a minute is how we put this trim piece, the correct shape, into the drip rail like this in order to cover up the screw holes. So when it's finished, it will look like that the entire length of the car, and you will not be able to see how the drip rail is fastened to the car. So in a moment we'll step over and take a look at the roof of the 39 Deluxe. Let's do this corner first. This is the front, obviously the front corner of the 39 Woody wagon. The drip rail that I just described, which runs along the sides, has this gutter-like piece along the bottom. So the rain comes down, it falls in the gutter, and theoretically it flows off the car. The cross piece, which dresses up the front header, does not have the drip rail underneath of it. It's just a simple piece that has two folded edges over it. Now this insert here is the correct rubber that I described a few moments ago, so I will finish the car by putting that rubber in to cover these. This is the piece that I attempted to use that Cliff Green had given me, and I had sliced the V inside of it so it's deeper and a little wider, so I was able to compress it. But as you can see, this piece stands prouder from the roof out to here, and it doesn't look exactly right, although it would have worked if necessary. So part of the point here is, if you're doing a project like this, you should join a club, because there's so much help from different people. They have the same needs as you do, and remember, one hand washes the other. So in this case, they were able to help me figure this out, and I was very appreciative of it. I'm a member of the early Ford V8 Club, which covers all Ford V8s from 1932 to 1953 that had the flathead Ford V8 engine in them. And also I'm a member of the National Woody Club, which provides members that help from both of those perspectives. So now we'll take a look at the back corner of the car in just a moment. Okay, one of the features of a Woody wagon are these finger joints, and they're basically a concept of joining smaller pieces of this, in this case hard maple, together, which was cheaper, because if you try to get a piece this big, you wouldn't have a tree that big. So there's a finger joint here, another lap joint here, finger joint, finger joint. And one of the interesting things about this is, after 6 or 7 coats of varnish, the depth is enough that the light reflects differently. So if you look at this finger joint from that edge, this is darker, this looks lighter. If you come around here, you can see that the opposite happens.
Oop. Oh, yeah, I got it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You can see that the opposite happens, and this side then looks darker and this side looks lighter. And that's simply a reflection of the light going through that many coats of varnish. We use a marine spar varnish that's usually used on yachts and stuff like that. Here's a piece of tiger stripe maple. The panels are basswood, and the frame is basically hard maple. Okay, so now we're at the rear corner of the car, and as you can see, the drip rail that we've been talking about terminates right here. They have this decorative chrome piece. I showed you a raw original piece a few moments ago. This dresses it up. This car is the Deluxe, which has extra chrome pieces, versus the standard, which was a cheaper car. It did not have these pieces. The Deluxe, for example, has chrome window pulls here, whereas the standard, they're painted. The Deluxe had a fancier roof material. The standard is basically flat and brown. And there's other differences as well. The Deluxe has a banjo type steering wheel, whereas the standard has a plain steering wheel, and so forth. So anyway, the rear roof here, this is the whelping that I described a minute ago, where you can separate and fold it up so you can drive a nail in. There's a nail right there, and when you're finished, the whelping closes up like that and conceals those nail heads. So it goes all the way around the rear of the car like this. I don't know why they didn't use a metal trim piece, but they didn't, all the way around. And here again we have the chrome trim piece at the end of the drip rail, and that's pretty much it. So thank you very much. I appreciate the attention to this roof project on the 39 Ford Deluxe Woody Wagon Restoration. It's 2021, and I've been working on this project for about 20 years. Built the wood body from scratch, and we're almost finished. So thank you very much.